Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. Our cover story tonight is about Pakistan's never-ending crisis. The political chaos, the economic misery continues to worsen. A former Pakistan Prime Minister has now issued a dire warning on the country's deepening crisis. The ex-Prime Minister has warned of a military takeover. But can a coup end Pakistan's crisis? Is Pakistan really headed for military rule? Would Shehbaz Sharif prefer to hand over power to the army than to Imran Khan? And could this be the first time that Pakistan would see what might be called a friendly coup, leaving Pakistan in the hands of the army chief? We discuss this and more. Also on the show for you tonight, we tell you about China's obsession with rewriting history and its growing intolerance for dissent. As the Sudan crisis continues to deepen, we tell you all about the mission evacuation as countries continue to evacuate their nationals. Will Ronaldo be deported from Saudi Arabia? That's a question that continues to dominate global headlines. And we also tell you about heartbeat rings for couples and why they are being talked about. Is Pakistan headed for military rule once again? Is a coup on the cards? Haven't Pakistanis had enough of generals who become dictators? Field Marshal Ayub Khan, Yahya Khan, who unleashed havoc and massacres on Bangladesh. General Zia-ul Haq, who drove his country towards extreme Islamism. General Pervez Musharraf, who left Pakistan in complete shambles. But as Pakistan's economic crisis spirals out of control and prices soar to unbelievable heights, as the treasury heads towards bankruptcy, as civilian politicians stare at one another for the rewards of office at the expense of the country's people, as the government and the judiciary pass daily orders against each other almost, and as the army chief looks quietly at the gathering storm, saying nothing, perhaps biding his time, voices are being raised to say that once again Pakistan seems to have no other option if it wants stability. A question that was earlier only a part of dinner table conversations is being asked by the country's own leaders. I am talking about the country's former Prime Minister, Shahid Khaqan Abbasi. He has warned that the current crisis in the country is enough to lead to a military takeover. In fact, according to him, martial law remains a possibility, and all stakeholders need to address the political crisis soon. Not just that, Abbasi also said that martial law has always remained a possibility in case of a system failure. Martial law was imposed in Pakistan whenever there was conflict between institutions like the judiciary and the political leadership, and there was no way forward. Now, here's the thing. Pakistan had been directly ruled for about half of its history by military generals. But even when the military generals are not in power on paper, they continue to call the shots. According to the former Prime Minister, Pakistan has had many long periods of martial law in very similar situation. He goes on to say that Pakistan has never witnessed such a severe economic and political situation before, and that the military has taken over in much less severe circumstances. Does that sound worrying? What does the Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif have to say? Is the army going to snatch away his authority? if he has any at all, that is? And what do his ministers have to say? Well, let me tell you that this is not the first time the possibility of a military takeover has been raised. Far from it. Pakistan's own foreign minister, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, talked about the imposition of an emergency. Bilawal is the son of former leader Benazir Bhutto and the grandson of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, who was hanged by an army despot, Zia-ul-Haq, in what was called a judicial murder. Benazir was sent into exile by General Zia and returned to office through an election only after General Zia died in a mysterious air crash. Benazir herself was assassinated when General Musharraf was in power. Despite such a tragic personal history, Bilawal Bhutto is talking about an emergency which can only be realistically imposed by army rule. You know that the crisis has gone out of control. Just 3 weeks ago, Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, Pakistan's foreign minister, said that if the current crisis persists, Pakistan may face an emergency-like situation. He also added that he is apprehensive about the imposition of martial law in the country. Basically, he was worried that the political crisis in the country will spiral out of control. You see, this time, what Pakistan is going through is unprecedented. Its economy is bleeding. People are starving. The level of desperation and despair on the ground has reached a point of no return. To the extent that people are dying in stampedes while trying to get wheat during the distribution of food aid. Over 20 people have lost their lives in such stampedes over food in recent days. So it's either dying because of starvation or dying while fighting against starvation. Such is the sad state of affairs in the country. Food inflation is at a record high of 47%. Last month, inflation in Pakistan touched a nearly 60-year high, 60. The rate of year-on-year inflation hit 35.37% in March. This was the most expensive Ramzan for some people, and the country saw muted celebrations and festivities. And the political chaos in the country is only getting worse. Let me tell you about what another former leader of the country is up to. I'm talking about Imran Khan. He has launched his election campaign in Punjab. Now, in any other part of the world, elections follow a due process, but this is Pakistan and Imran Khan we are talking about. He has launched the election campaign in Punjab without any clarity regarding the date of the polls, saying that the ruling establishment might not be ready for the election, but he definitely is. There is uncertainty regarding the elections in Punjab. It is the country's most populous province. It sends nearly 150 lawmakers to the National Assembly. Meanwhile, the Election Commission of Pakistan is waiting for funds from the federal government to carry out that election. The Defense Ministry, meanwhile, telling the Election Commission that the Pakistan Army will not be available for providing security. The cash-strapped government has not authorized funds to meet the expenses, and this is amid the economic crisis. Imran Khan has already been training his guns on the country's establishment, saying that they have no idea how to get out of this economic mess. He's been targeting the government over this. Well, he is not wrong about that. The country's Prime Minister already has talked about the embarrassment faced by the country when it has to go around the world with a begging bowl. But Imran Khan, you see, was not able to solve the economic puzzle himself either when he was in power. The vested interests of those who want to cling on to power have cost the country and its people dearly. If you have a better definition of political chaos, let me know. And let me leave you with one more thought. And it's not outside the realm of possibility, given the deep, endemic hatred that has now become synonymous with Pakistan's politics. Would Shehbaz Sharif prefer to hand over power to the army than to Imran Khan? You see, their hatred for each other is well known. They would happily use power to destroy the other. Could this be the first time that Pakistan would see what might be called a friendly coup, in which the Sharifs walk away and take a flight to their safe havens, leaving Pakistan in the hands of the army chief? You see, in the Pakistan of 2023, anything seems possible. And from Pakistan, we shift our focus to its close ally, China. Anything that the Chinese don't like, they alter it to fit their narrative. China rewrites the truths, it censors facts, it presents a polished version of just about any story. And whoever does not succumb to it is thrown into jail. Getting information out of China is no easy task. The country has been lying about its Wuhan virus deaths since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, Chinese censorship is quietly rewriting the entire COVID-19 story. Early in 2020, on the 11th of February, the deadly new viral infection was officially named COVID-19. And on the same day, a team of American and Chinese scientists released critical data. The data showed how quickly the virus was spreading, who was dying and when. The study was cited in multiple health warnings around the world. It was a moment of crisis, and the research was a model of international collaboration, something that highlighted the fatality of the virus. It showed the real picture of the epidemic that was taking root. But not for long. A New York Times investigation has made some startling revelations. It says Chinese researchers quietly withdrew the paper within days of its release. And in its place, a message was put out, one telling the scientists not to cite the report. On what grounds, though? For outdated information, it says. And the peculiar move was noticed by a few observers, but it quickly faded amid the frenzy of the virus, only to resurface now. It is now clear that the study was not taken down for faulty research. Instead, it was Chinese health officials cracked down on the truth. You see, they kicked up a cloud of dust around the early Wuhan virus cases. They tried to hide the details, like the real dates of the infections, how widespread it was, even the death toll. One of the American authors of the study, Ira Longini, saying, and I'm quoting, "It was so hard to get any information out of China. There was so much covered up and so much hidden." The Chinese government did everything in its power to hide the truth. It silenced the scientists, hindered international investigations, censored online discussion of the pandemic. And that's not all. China's chokehold on COVID-19 information runs far deeper. Its censorship campaign has targeted international journals and scientific databases. And under pressure from the government, Chinese scientists withheld data. Genetic sequences have been withdrawn from public databases. Crucial details in journal submissions have been altered. Chinese officials initiated this. Western journal editors enabled it. And who suffered ultimately? The general public, after all. China's COVID-19 censorship shook the very foundations of shared scientific knowledge. Scientists needed to know whether transmission patterns changed, if there were new variants, if the world should be preparing for a global outbreak. People deserve to know the actual scale of the calamity. But you see, that was not what China wanted. The country is obsessed with rewriting history. And COVID-19, of course, was a striking instance, but only one instance. Even the World Health Organization agrees, in fact. Taiwan is another example. You know it already. The country says Taiwan is a part of communist-ruled China. And for years, China has been selling this idea to the world. It is seeking to impose it on the United Nations bodies as well. Last year in April, a think tank made some revelations. It said that Beijing was using its influence at the United Nations. It was compelling NGOs to rewrite references to Taiwan. It threatened them to revise historical documents to fit China's narrative or risk losing access. China also twisted the original text of the resolution to push for one China principle, the resolution stating that the People's Republic of China is the only legitimate government of China. And this made it difficult for Taiwan to participate in UN-affiliated agencies in any way. And it doesn't stop there. China also refuses to acknowledge that Hong Kong was once a British colony. All references were scrubbed out from new teaching materials last year. Children's textbooks in Hong Kong parrot Beijing's version of the history. What China cannot rewrite, it erases from public eye. And such is the case of the Taiwanese publisher Li Yanhe. He has published many books that are banned in China. He was visiting his relatives in Shanghai when he was detained by Chinese officials. He was accompanied by writer Bei Ling. Bei reported Li's detention via Facebook. But Li's relatives requested him to take down the post. And why was that? Because it wasn't going to help. And if anything, it risked complicating the matter further. Because clearly, Chinese officials do not tolerate bad publicity. And something similar happened to 5 publishers in the year 2015. They were all connected to Hong Kong's Causeway Bay Books. The bookstore had sold a number of critical, political and gossipy titles banned by the CCP. The publishers went missing from Hong Kong, mainland China and Thailand, only to re-emerge later in Chinese detention. You see, China is averse to bad PR, and it doesn't spare its offenders in any way. Our next story is about what might be the fall of the dollar empire. Bangladesh has now become the 19th country to have bilateral trade with India in Indian rupees. This move essentially removes the role that the US dollar has in trade and reduces the cost of trade for both the sides. How far will the US dollar spiral down this hole, and how many more countries are replacing the dollar in their trade? After months of deliberations, India and Bangladesh will now trade in taka and rupees without the inclusion of any third currency. And why is this change taking place? The exchange in India's rupee and Bangladesh's taka will reduce the cost of settlement. It will also lessen the stress on the forex reserves. And the new arrangement will also promote trade, as the two countries plan to trade in their own currencies. Reports say the countries will also initiate a dual currency card. Travelers would be able to load these cards with rupees or taka. The exchange rate would be decided based on the two currencies rather than working with the exchange rate of the dollar. But you see, this is not a new move by Bangladesh. The country also decided to pay Russia with Chinese yuan to settle payments for a nuclear plant. The over $12 billion nuclear plant project was mostly financed through a Russian loan. Bangladesh did not use dollars due to the sanctions on Russia. Since paying in rubles was not feasible for Bangladesh, both the countries planned on carrying transactions in yuan. This came amid increasing de-dollarization efforts by various countries. And the BRICS nations that were opting for a common BRICS currency. The story of the dying dollar, as many are calling it, started much earlier when countries like Iran abandoned settling trade in dollar with China and Russia. Saudi Arabia opted to give up petrodollar and begin accepting petro-yuan. Brazil abandoned the dollar and said that it would be trading in local currency with China. The BRICS nations are still being urged to make an alternative currency to settle cross-border trade. Is the US dollar truly losing its hegemony? Especially after Russia saw sanctions following the invasion of Ukraine, several countries, like I mentioned, are giving up trading in dollars. Countries are now promoting the local currency for trade. Trading in the local currency also helps reduce the exchange costs, essentially, which are usually high while settling in dollars. And India stands as a significant example regarding the de-dollarization in trade. The country will be using its rupee to start overseas trade with over 19 countries. Countries like Russia, the UK, Sri Lanka, Germany, Kenya will also trade in rupees, leaving the dollar behind. The US dollar, also known as the king of currency, became the official reserve currency of the world in 1944, and this gave America a disproportionate amount of influence over other economies. Reports say that America could have used the imposition of sanctions as a tool to achieve foreign policy goals. But now it has almost been proven that not everybody likes to play by America's rules, especially countries like Russia and China that look forward to halting the dollar's dominance in the markets. And this is what is known as de-dollarization, the process essentially of substituting the American dollar as a currency used for trading oil and other currencies. Replacing the US dollar in trade has been gaining momentum in recent years. The IMF has been witnessing many central banks no longer holding dollars as reserves in the same quantities as they earlier were. And experts say that de-dollarization would reduce the global dependence on the US dollar and the US economy. And this could help mitigate the impact of America's economic changes on another country's economy. And nations will also be able to reduce their exposure to currency fluctuations and interest rate changes. De-dollarization would help improve the economic stability and potentially erase the risk of a financial crisis. Will the US manage to come back as the so-called king of currency? We will be informing you about the latest. And our next story is about the law taking its course against all odds. A separatist leader was on the run for over a month in India, but Punjab police nabbed him. And shortly thereafter, he was transferred to a jail in the northeastern state of Assam. Our next report getting you the complete story. Take a look.
A manhunt that's been on for more than a month finally ended on Sunday morning. On the 37th day of one of the most televised and closely watched chases in India, Amritpal Singh, the Separatist pro-Khalistan preacher, was arrested by the police of India's Punjab after much drama. The 30-year-old leader of the outfit Waris Punjab De was arrested from outside a Gurudwara in Punjab's Moga district. Coincidence or plan? The village road from where Amritpal was nabbed is the ancestral village of slain Sikh militant leader Jarnail Singh Bhindranwale. Amritpal styles himself after the terrorist. Police said Amritpal was trapped after it surrounded the village, following intelligence inputs. It stresses it did not enter the Gurudwara owing to its sanctity, and chose to wait outside. Claims of surrender stand debunked too. Police insists the hate-monger was arrested after being surrounded from all sides. It was also in Moga district that Amritpal had evaded arrest on March 18th, when the crackdown against him and his outfit was launched. The crackdown was launched about 3 weeks after he and his supporters stormed a police station near Amritsar to secure the release of an arrested colleague. The escape was as dramatic as his arrest. On the 18th of March, Amritpal took a U-turn merely 100 meters away from a police checkpost in a village in Moga district. While on the run, he released 2 video messages and an audio message urging the Sikh Akal Takht chief to call a conclave of Sikhs on the festival of Baisakhi to mobilize Sikhs across the globe. On the run, he was spotted in various cities of northern India, while his aides were being arrested one by one. In late March, he made an unsuccessful attempt to cross over into Nepal. His wife, a British citizen, was arrested 2 days back from Amritsar airport when she was attempting to fly to the UK. On the diplomatic back foot, after pro-Khalistan activists tried to vandalize the Indian High Commission in London, the United Kingdom held its silence on Amritpal's arrest. Reports say the Kirandeep Kaur connection was a vital link in Amritpal keeping up activities in Punjab. Amritpal now faces over half a dozen criminal cases for alleged offences including attempt to murder, abduction and extortion. Hours after his arrest on Sunday, Amritpal was taken on a special flight from Punjab in India's west to Dibrugarh Central Jail in India's northeastern state of Assam. 9 of his associates are lodged here. All of them are being tried under the stringent National Security Act. Disquiet against Amritpal and his activities has been on the rise from the moment he arrived in Punjab from Dubai in September last year. He began making speeches about taking the youth back to true Sikhism and giving them knowledge of weapons. Amritpal Singh had first started gaining traction on social media during the 2020-21 farmers' stir against the now repealed farm laws. Amritpal's popularity was built over Facebook Live and other social media sessions, with his aggressive speeches against regional and national political parties, feminists, activists, Khalsa Aid and other groups. The law catches up. Justice awaits. Bureau Report, World is One.
Let's move on for now. Football star Cristiano Ronaldo is once again in the news. And what did he do this time? What's the reason? An obscene gesture in public, and his move has attracted backlash. It has triggered calls for his deportation from Saudi Arabia. Let's just get you the details first. On the 18th of April, Ronaldo's club, Al Nassr, this was on the 18th of April, Ronaldo's club, Al Nassr, competed against Al Hilal at the King Fahd International Stadium. Al Nassr slumped to a 2-0 defeat. Ronaldo cut a frustrated figure during the Riyadh derby. He saw a goal ruled out and a penalty decision in the team's favour overturned. Al Hilal fans booed and jeered Ronaldo. They were heard chanting his rival Messi's name to provoke him. And what Ronaldo did next has sparked the controversy. While exiting the pitch, Ronaldo was seen grabbing his genitals, and it is being seen as a mark of disrespect for the home fans. Since then, the people of Saudi Arabia have been calling for his deportation. A prominent lawyer took to her Twitter account to slam Ronaldo. This is what Newf Bint Ahmad said, and I'm quoting. Even if the crowd provoked Ronaldo, he did not know how to react. Cristiano's behavior is a crime, an indecent public act, which is one of the crimes that allows for arrest and deportation if committed by a foreigner. Ahmad has vowed to submit a petition to the public ministry to look into the matter. Many have come out to support the star on social media. His club, Al Nassr, has also come to Ronaldo's defense. It says that the gesture was related to an injury in the groin area, following a challenge from an Al Hilal player, and that Ronaldo was not mocking the fans. Now, this is not the first time Ronaldo has lashed out on his rival supporters. The incident reflects his frustration towards Al Nassr's performance. The team recently lost its grip on the Saudi Pro League title race, and now it sits 3 points behind the leaders, Al Ittihad. Earlier this month, during a match with Al Fayha, Ronaldo was seen arguing with his opponents. The goalless draw left Ronaldo reportedly furious over his team's tactical approach. He stormed down the tunnel after the match, and the very next day, the manager, Rudy Garcia, was sacked after a reported feud with Ronaldo. Ronaldo has scored in just 2 of his last 6 league games, and now he finds himself in yet another controversy. Was Ronaldo's action an honest mistake? Was he really injured? Or was it just another example of his reckless behavior? And will he really be deported from Saudi Arabia? His contract does not end till the summer of 2025. Meanwhile, reports say that the superstar has received an offer to return to his ex-club Sporting CP. What is Ronaldo going to do? Let me now ask you a question. Would you want an expensive diamond ring on your wedding day or for your wedding? Or would you like a ring made of pure gold? You might want to consider what's being called a smart ring. In an era of wearable tech like smartwatches, smart tech has now entered the wedding industry. Smart rings are bringing lovers together by letting them feel each other's heartbeat through their rings. Our next report bringing you more.
The magical union of 2 lovers could now get even more romantic, or it could get creepy. Depends on the way you see this. Here's what we are talking about. Advanced tech is re-innovating the culture of exchanging rings. Wedding rings or bands serve as a reminder of one's devotion towards their partner. Seeing the ring on their partner's hand every day is a constant reminder that the lovers are meant to be with each other for the rest of their lives. Now, tech experts are taking things a step further. They are giving the rings the ability to feel heartbeats. This means that if one of their partners touches their ring, they will feel the exact heartbeat of their better half. This is not all. It will also display the heartbeat as a moving red line on the surface of the ring. So, how do these high-tech wedding rings work? Each one of the rings is connected to an app via Bluetooth. The specialized app allows the rings to be connected. Users need to have their mobile phones connected to the internet to get their partner's heartbeat in real time. If there is no internet connection, the user will feel the heartbeat which was recorded the last time. Some couples feel that the smart rings are more romantic as it gives the users the feeling of being close to their partners. They also recreate the idea of traditional rings and provide a new take on the symbol of love. The rechargeable rings are not the only new invention. Advanced necklaces have also been released, which have the same technology as the smart rings. What's the target audience? Engaged couples. They can embrace the technology and not let go of the traditional wedding rings. Wedding celebrations are using all kinds of tech, from drones for photography to using AI for wedding planning tasks. Nowadays, several people meet their partners through apps. AI tools are even helping people write their wedding vows. Artificial intelligence is assisting grooms in putting their feelings into words. This is a machine helping a human express emotions. Is that ironic? What about people who are not all that tech-savvy? Do you see heartbeat rings as a way to win over your partner's heart? Or are they a bit too much? Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
And since it's Monday, time for some Monday motivation. Have you heard of the saying, the first thing in order to be successful is to love your job? We've all heard that. And let me start off this week by asking you, do you love your job? Are you passionate about what you do? These are loaded questions, but if your answer is yes, does loving your job make things easier for you? Is the immediate question that arises. You see, for decades, we have believed that loving what we do, loving our work, is a good thing. Loving your job is all it takes to be a good employee, to do better, to do well. Passion above money, they say. But is passion profitable, both for companies and the employees? And the answer to that question is way beyond a simple yes. It's rather complicated. Just have a look at this recent study. It says that passion can blur managers to reality. What does that mean? Let's just say you are more deserving of that promotion than your colleague, but she gets promoted. Why? Because the manager chose to ignore credible performance and, picked years of organizational association instead. And this, by the way, is just one of the many examples where managers are blindsided to the extent that poor performance is mostly neglected and often silenced. And in the name of harmonious passion, this takes a massive toll on the overall growth of the organization. From an employee perspective, passion is even riskier. It has two main ingredients after all, harmony and obsession. While harmonious passion arises because an employee genuinely enjoys their work, obsessive passion stems out of compulsive behavior that lacks self-control. And what's the outcome, you ask? Well, the former can lead to ineffective time and effort at work, while the latter can be overly and elusively idealistic. And both for personal and organizational performance. In fact, passion is believed to facilitate exploitation at work. And that is because passionate employees are asked to perform tasks that are completely unrelated to their job role. And it's normal to assume that they will work for not money, that they will work at the cost of their family time. I'm sure you would agree with me that it's hard to say no to work when you are in love with what you do. Say, for example, on a Sunday, your manager asks you to join a conference call or file a report. Now, someone who loves their work will probably do it anyway, despite Sunday being the weekly day off. Do you see the price for passion here? Perhaps it's a bit too pricey. The fashion for passion is understandable, but it has its own downsides. In other words, if you do what you love, it does not guarantee that you do it well or that it will do you good. So what's the ideal way to go about it? Having a meaningful conversation with your manager, perhaps, about your likes and dislikes, that would be a good place to start. Finding places outside of work to anchor your passion is another plausible way. You see, at the end of the day, it's to each their own. If being a workaholic makes you happy, you do you. You let that be your #Monday motivation, because loving your work is good. However, loving it too much might be a problem. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
Global military spending reached record high of $2.2 trillion, according to Stockholm-based research institute. Military expenditure in Europe saw its steepest increase, reaching a level unseen since the Cold War. Australia's government will be focusing on long-range strike capability. A strategic review says the intense competition between the US and China is defining the region, and that the major power competition has potential for conflict. Death toll in the Kenyan starvation cult rises to 58. Kenyan Red Cross says 112 people were reported missing. Bodies of people who had starved themselves recovered from mass graves in Shakola forest in eastern Kenya. Former United Nations Chief Ban Ki-moon arrived in Myanmar as the bloody conflict engulfing the country spirals. Diplomatic efforts to end the crisis unleashed by the military's 2021 coup have stalled, with the junta ignoring international criticism of its brutal crackdown on dissent. UK slaps sanctions on Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as part of new restrictions on Tehran for alleged human rights violations. The sanctions include a travel ban and asset freeze on 4 individuals. A plane catches fire shortly after takeoff from Ohio airport. A bird strike reportedly sparked the engine fire. Authorities say the airliner returned safely with no injuries reported. Britain sets up $125 million task force to develop artificial intelligence foundation model chatbots. They will be deployed in fields like healthcare and education. UK's main opposition Labour Party has suspended prominent MP and party whip Diane Abbott after she said Jewish people are not subjected to racism all their lives. The iconic Sydney cricket ground has honoured legends Sachin Tendulkar and Brian Lara by naming a set of gates after them. The gates, which will be used by visiting players to access the field, were unveiled to mark Tendulkar's 50th birthday and the 30th anniversary of Lara's 277 at the SCG. Reigning champions Golden State Warriors held off a fourth-quarter comeback from the Sacramento Kings to tie the first-round series at 2-all. Stephen Curry scored 32 points as the Warriors claimed Game 4, 126-125.
And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. We are leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
为了减轻给妈妈带娃的压力，园区采用了人工育幼的方式。
WION. Now
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who